There's a reason every book in this trilogy won Hugo Awards, like every single book in the trilogy. Like, tell me who else has done that, because I can. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Blake the Book Eater here, and today I'm bringing you, finally, my March wrap-up. So I read quite a few books in March. I didn't really realize until I sat down and filmed this, but yeah, I'm really proud of myself. So yeah, let's just jump right into this. Before we do, go follow me on my socials below, because why not? And yeah, let's go. Okay, so the first book I read this month is probably one of my favorite books I've ever read. So really coming out swinging, and that is Raybearer by Jordan Fuego. This book is beautiful and insane. It is the first in a duology, so the second book actually comes out in August, I believe, and this is just probably it is the best YA fantasy book I have ever read in my entire life. This book follows Tari Sai as she is kind of sent to this palace under orders from her mother, and her mother has kind of, I don't want to spoil too much, but basically Tari Sai is compelled to murder this boy that she's supposed to fall in love with, and that is the premise. There's a lot more nuance and a lot more things that go down, but at the end of the day, this book was insane and I loved it so much. It was so propulsive and I couldn't stop turning the pages. It was just absolutely magical. Like literally, when I think of like a magical book now, this is the book that I'm going to be thinking of, because it's just so good. Like Fuego's language and the way she uses her prose is honestly insane to me, because it's just so well done. I was sucked into this book. I could not put it down, and I cannot wait for the sequel and the final conclusion to this series that comes out later this year. Literally jumped up to my #1 most anticipated read of 2021. So yeah, go read this book. So next I read the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, and yes, I read this whole trilogy this month. I'm proud of myself. So I'll talk about just the first book because I don't want to give away too many spoilers. Just know that the series as a whole is absolutely fantastic. So this book follows 3 perspectives. We have Essen, Demaya, and Cyanite, and the way these 3 characters their narratives come across is so insanely interesting and fascinating. Also, N.K. Jemisin does this amazing thing where out of the 2 of the 3 POVs are in 3rd person, and then Essen's POV is in 2nd person. So she refers to Essen as you. So you, the reader, are Essen. And it was just so... It grabbed me and really drew me into this world even faster. And yeah, that's all I kind of want to say about that. Like, if you are hesitant to read it because of the 2nd person POV, I understand that, but also it's not the whole book. It's just a part of the book, and I think it works really, really well. So I would give it a chance before you just kind of write it off. Now, this book did take me a little bit of time to get into. It took me about 100 pages just because N.K. Jemisin really just is such a master world builder, but she does it in the way where she just kind of throws everything at you, and then you just kind of have to flounder for a little bit, and then it will click. And I do love when authors do that. So although it was a little confusing at first, once I got it really, really well. And the 5th season takes place in this world where there are things called 5th seasons. You know, you have the regular 4th season, and then the 5th season is death, basically. And so every so often there will be these apocalyptic type events called 5th seasons that occur. They only happen like every 100 years or so, sometimes sooner, sometimes longer, because this world, the stillness, it's very volatile. There are lots of like tectonic plates and things like that. And because of that, yeah, it's a very rough world to live in. And there are people called Origins, who kind of can harness the earth, and they're not like earthbenders or something like that. Like the origin magic is so complicated, it's so hard to describe, and there's really no way you can understand it without like reading it and experiencing it. Just know that like it was so good the way it was done. So Essen is an origin. Actually, all three of the main characters are origins, and you kind of follow them at different points in their life and their training. So you do kind of like, that is kind of our introduction to the magic system, just because some characters have been harnessing this power for a really long time, and some of them are new to it and learning things about it. So you as the reader start to learn more about it. And because of that, I thought it was really well done. And so the main kind of thrust of this novel, because there are three main characters. I don't want to spoil two of the characters' kind of storylines because that is part of the fun. But the main character, Essen, at the start of the book, she returns home and discovers that her son was murdered by her husband, and that her daughter has been taken. And so she is kind of going to avenge her son's death and also find and rescue her daughter. And also I love the fact that, number one, there like was so much effortless diversity in this book. Because I feel like I've read a lot of stories, very, very popular stories that were kind of pushed upon readers by publishing and things like that, of like Black trauma. And while I think those stories do have their place and their time, if you're constantly only reading diverse books about Black trauma, that's problematic in itself. There are books out there, like fantasy books and things like that, like written by Black authors. So please go read those. But I think this was just like a perfect example of just like having like an entirely or mostly Black cast and just having it be so natural. And so, yeah, I love that N.K. Jemisin is so unapologetic about it. It's not like, because in this world, it's not about race. It's about, why can't I think of the word? Origins. It's about kind of like origins and then humans. So the origins are the othered, and they are just kind of born randomly. Like you can obtain it genetically from your parents. And yeah, so there's a lot. Sorry, I'm going into this a lot, but I don't want to spoil everything, because I do have an entire kind of reading vlog about this series that will be coming out very soon. Just know that, this book was absolutely phenomenal. I think this is one of the best books I've ever read. It was so, so well done. And the storyline was so propulsive. The way everything ties together is just beautiful. N.K. Jemisin's language and her prose, oh my god, it's so, so good. Like, there's a reason every book in this trilogy won Hugo Awards. Like, every single book in the trilogy. Like, tell me who else has done that, because I can't. And there's a reason for that. N.K. Jemisin is fantastic, and I've been talking about this book for way too long. Just know that this series is fantastic, and I definitely think it is worth picking up. If you haven't, please do. It's so good. Okay, sorry for talking about that for so long. So the next book that I read was actually our Vintage Books and Wine pick of the month, and that was The Harpy by Megan Hunter. Now, this book was really interesting. I gave it a 3-star. By the way, the last couple, you know, they were 5 stars, right? I mean, I don't even have to say, just the way I was talking about, you should know. But so the Harpy was a 3-star read for me. It was good. It was really interesting. It follows this woman named Lucy who discovers that her husband is having an affair, and for no better way to say this, to kind of like balance the scales, he allows her to hurt him 3 times. So in a way, this almost felt like a dark fairy tale where she was going to find a way to hurt her husband 3 times, you know, the rule of 3s, and, you know, in fairy tales, it's like you get 3 wishes, that kind of stuff. This is, you know, this is way darker than that, but at the same time, not dark enough. So, like, to me, I thought this book was going to go one way and kind of really go there, and it didn't, and to me, like, that was a little disappointing. I did really like the prose in this book. I thought it was really interesting, but at the end of the day, there wasn't enough substance to the plot, because this book was really short. It was like, I don't know, like 180 pages. I read it in like 2 sittings. So there just wasn't enough meat on the bones for me, but I don't regret reading it. It was a fun read, and you can check out our discussion of the Harpy. I'm going to link it down below. It was over on Matthew's channel, and we had a lot of fun talking about it. And also our book for this month, April, is The Death of Vivek Oji, and that will be hosted on Ace's channel. So join us for reading that if you would like to. So the next book, I reread a classic, and that is Six of Crows. I read the Grisha trilogy for the first time like a month and a half ago, and that was an experience. And so before I dive into the King of Scars duology, I wanted to refresh myself and reread the Six of Crows duology. So yes, I did read both of them, Six of Crows and Cricket Kingdom. Six of Crows, I think, holds up. It's so good. It's honestly probably one of the best YA books I've read, and I know people are kind of upset that a lot of modern books are like constantly compared to Six of Crows, and yes, I agree that there are some books being compared to Six of Crows that are like nothing like Six of Crows. So it's like, if you're gonna compare yourself to Six of Crows, make sure that like it's like an accurate comparison, and not just heist, because a book can have a heist and be 2 very different things, you know what I mean? But anyways, but as for Six of Crows itself, this book is so good. The characters are so well written. It's so interesting because this feels darker than it should for a YA novel. Like, it almost feels like an adult book at times just because of how dark it gets. It never like crosses the line too far. It's just, I think this is one of the first times that I personally read a YA, you know, when I first read it, I believe in like 2016, that the characters were so like kind of morally gray, and that was okay, and that was cool, and that was just how the story was. And I think YA has come a lot farther from Six of Crows, since Six of Crows, and so we are getting more kind of like diverse protagonists who, you know, their morals are kind of all over the place, and I do really enjoy that. Like, I'm, you know, I don't, you know, thrown back to like old school YA, not old school, you know, not that old, but like, you know, like Hunger Games, things like that, where the main characters, you know, not like other girls, and like, oh, so good, and that kind of stuff, like, you know. And then you have books like Six of Crows and others since, who are like, that we're gonna have some more interesting characters. And yeah, the heist was so fun to read about in this book. The tension, the pacing is so good in Six of Crows. And then that brings me to the sequel and the final book in the duology, Cricket Kingdom. And this book is way fatter than Six of Crows, and it definitely feels like it. To me, I think on a reread, this is like a 4.5 for me, just because in the middle the pacing kind of slowed down quite a bit. There is a lot of good tension and really good conflicts, and this book really delves into the Crows' like their backstories and their motivations, and so you get a lot more character work in this book, which I think is really good. But at times it slows down a little too much because we didn't get as much backstory and stuff in the first book. And so it feels like this book almost has to compensate at times for that. And so I kind of wish that it had been balanced just a little bit more, and would have made this book a little bit of a tighter read, because it did feel just a little bit bloated. But I still loved the characters. The events were great. The action was so cool. And honestly, for some reason, the first book has stuck in my mind so well, but a lot of this book I did not remember, like, at all. So it was fascinating going back and rereading this book, because I was like, I do not remember any of this. So I'm gonna do a kind of review of both of these where I talked about them in more spoilery detail, so keep a lookout for that. But yeah, I think this duology is a great read. It is benefited by reading the Grisha trilogy first, because I personally read this duology before the Grisha trilogy, and then now rereading it after having read the Grisha trilogy, there were so many good connections and little tie-ins that I just like completely went over my head when I first read this duology. So like having that knowledge, I think makes these books just that much better. So I do recommend you do that first. And I will be reading the next duology very, very soon. And the last book that I read this month is actually a book that I've been listening to for about like 2 months now, and that is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. Now this book, this book was a delight. It was so good. This is the kind of like, when people say like grimdark, this is the kind of grimdark that I want, because it was dark, it was gritty, but also this book was really fucking funny. Like, so it was serious, but there was such like a good, dark, witty humor just kind of interlaced throughout the book. And honestly, I wouldn't have picked up on it as much, I think, if I read it, because I listened to it. So each line was able to really stick with me, and the delivery was phenomenal. So the book is written by Joe Abercrombie, but the narrator for the audiobooks was Stephen Pacey, and he was so good. He would do different voices for every single character, literally every single character. Like there would be a character that would pop up in like just one scene, and he would have a completely different voice for that character. I do not know how this man came up with so many different voices for everybody, but he did. And it was amazing. It was like listening to a movie. So I had a blast listening to it. It was so fun to listen to. The story is insanely captivating. We follow 3 main points of view. We have Glatka, Jazal, and Logan. There are some other characters who are viewpoint characters here and there, such as kind of Logan's crew, like the Dog Man. We have another side character named Pharaoh, and then we do get some side points of view from Major West. But the 3 main characters are kind of the ones whose stories this book is centered and built around. So we have Inquisitor Glokta, who is probably one of the best characters I have read about in a long time. He is just, his point of view is so fun to read. So he was tortured as a prisoner of war, and so he is crippled and very disfigured because of all this torture that he went through. And so what does he do now? He is an inquisitor where he tortures people, because he knows what it was like, and he's very good at it. And it's kind of terrifying. And by the way, this book is full of people who are just not good. Like, they are not good people, but they are very fun to read about. So when I'm talking about how I love a character, this is not me condoning them or like loving them as people. It's just like, as a character, they were so fun to read. And so Glokta was one of those. He is so funny. Like, his wit and his humor, and just like derision of like everyone around him, top tier, amazing. So he is kind of uncovering this plot. I don't want to say too much, but it's very much like an investigation with him, and that was such a great storyline, probably my favorite in the book. Then we have Jazal. Jazal is a complete asshole. He is misogynistic and sexist, and I hated him, but like, his character worked for the book. I just hated being in his head. And he is training to fight in this fencing competition. He is like this very kind of like rich playboy who, you know, thinks he's the best. And he's kind of balanced out by Major West, who is with him, and it was kind of like, he was a commoner and kind of raised to status in the army. So he is a lot more grounded and balances out Jazal, and Jazal starts to fall in love. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I didn't love him as a character, but I didn't love being in his head, but like, I think his arc as a character was really interesting to follow. And then the final point of view is Logan Ninefingers, and he was my second favorite character in the book. He was, so we have like this king in the north, Bethod, who is kind of gearing up for war with the Union, and Logan used to fight for Bethod, but now him and then his other kind of crew of named men, and the named men, basically it's like, if the men know your name, it's like you are like a dangerous man. So like the Bloody Nine is what Logan was called, and like everybody knows him because he was like very bad. But so he is kind of like changing, and he is at the start of the book he's being hunted by these kind of like orc like kind of things called the Shenka, and then he kind of is separated from his crew, and then he is being called to kind of meet up with this this wizard, the first of the Magi, by the name of Baez. And his story is really interesting. I loved just the interweaving of magic in this story, and there's so much mystery about so much in this world that I don't really know where it's gonna go or what's gonna happen. I'm just like, am so here for this story. I really enjoy it. It is going to take me a long time to finish the rest of the trilogy because I am listening to it, and I'm a very slow listener. But honestly, if you can like listen to audiobooks and like do it really fast, I highly recommend this, just because the narrator is so good. Like, I couldn't imagine like reading the book and not having the narrator's voice in my head, because he does such specific voices. It's so cool. Also, I've been ranting for too long, so I'm gonna stop. Okay guys, so I completely forgot to finish this part of the wrap up. Also, I couldn't find the shirt that I was wearing earlier, so, and I forgot to take a thumbnail, so this is just kind of a mess. So last month I forgot to do this as well. I said I was going to do it starting in January, and then I forgot in February. So for the March wrap up, we are also going to talk about the movies and TV shows and video games and stuff that I have been consuming in the past like 2 months, because it's been a while, so stay with me. So quickly, I'm just going to go over some of the video games that I've been playing. Also, I will be starting to Twitch stream within the next like month and a half or so. So keep an eye out for that. If you like video games, if you like watching people play video games, then, you know, I'm gonna be doing that. So the best video game that I played in the past month was Little Nightmares 2. I highly recommend this. It is dark, it is creepy, it is fun, it is getting dark outside, so the lighting has changed. I am so sorry. But yeah, so it follows, it's actually a prequel to the first Little Nightmares, so you can play Little Nightmares 2 without having played Little Nightmares 1. However, I highly recommend that you do play the first one and the DLC, because they're all just phenomenal storytelling and they're so much fun. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Little Nightmares 2 is probably my favorite game of the year so far, and I highly recommend it. Other games that I've been playing and enjoying, I've been working my way through Hades, and Hades is really fun. I also just got the Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborhoodville. It's kind of like an Overwatch style, like, online team game where you can play as the plants or the zombies and like fight against each other. It's like a third-person shooter. It's really fun. I'm enjoying it. I don't feel as bad when I lose. Like in Overwatch, like if I lose, I feel like shit. I'm like, damn it, you know? But like when I lose in Plants vs. Zombies, it's just kind of like, okay. But it's fun, so yeah, I recommend. I also played the first Borderlands game, which I played when I was a kid, and God, I love these Borderlands games so much, and it was so much fun revisiting it and pouring my hours into it. I finished the game, and I'm working my way through the DLCs right now, and then I'm going to move on to Borderlands 2. And that's kind of it for the video games that I've been playing this last month. I haven't had a ton of time to really play because of school and that kind of thing, so hopefully in like the next couple months it'll be a lot easier for me to talk about these video games because I have more time, and I'll be streaming. So okay, as for movies that you need to watch Minari. It's one of the best movies I have ever seen. It, I think, should win all the Oscars that it's nominated for. It's just so moving and humanistic, and I love Minari so much. So please, 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 like, you know, it's the perfect, like, immigrant story. It's the perfect story of being an Asian American. It's so beautifully done, and I really think that you will love it if you see it. So I also watched this movie called Bad Education with Hugh Jackman and Allison Janney. It's on HBO. It's about a superintendent and his, like, not assistant, but like other person in the office, and basically they were like stealing money from the school, and this kind of details the whole story, and it's a true story. So it was kind of wild and insane, and definitely worth a watch. Let's see. Oh, I also saw the Snyder Cut of Justice League. It was fun. It was a lot better than the original Justice League, and so I enjoyed it. It is 4 hours long, but it didn't feel like 4 hours. I actually took a break kind of in the middle, and I think taking a break in the middle helped, because I don't know if I would have been able to sit for 4 straight hours, but it was good. Promising Young Woman is a movie that y'all need to see. Literally everybody needs to see it. Women need to see this. Men need to see this movie, especially like men, go see this movie. Like, go see it like it's your job, and please internalize the message of this movie. Like, it's that good, and it is that important, and it is a movie that everybody should be watching. And that's all I'm gonna say on that. Godzilla vs. Kong was awesome. I loved it. It was so cool. Yeah, just big monsters fighting each other. Everything that you could ever want. It's like, it's dumb, but it's fun. So why are you complaining? Like, just go watch monsters like punch each other in the face for a couple hours. It's a good time. And the last movie I want to talk about is actually a movie that came out like 2 years ago. It's called Haunt. It's currently on Shudder, which, if you did not know, Shudder is a horror streaming service, and if you didn't know, I love horror movies, so of course I have Shudder. And Haunt is this crazy ass movie where you know, it sounds very stereotypical, like you have your group of teens and they go you know, into a haunted house. And that's the premise. It's like an extreme haunted house. You know, they have to sign waivers and everything before they go in. And then once they're inside, shit starts to go down. And it is so good. It's such a simple, like, premise, but the execution is just brilliant. And it's so well done. So well done. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I highly recommend that movie and all the other movies I mentioned. And so yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the other things that I consumed this month. So I'm gonna hand it back over to past Blake to finish it off. Anyways, that was all the books that I read in March. So thank you for watching and listening to my thoughts, opinions, and feels about these books. And I hope you will tune in next month for my April wrap up. And I will have some videos coming out between now and then. I have some really cool videos that I just uploaded on my channel in the last couple days, which have been really cool. So go check those out. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment below and let me know what you guys read in March, and I will see you next time. Bye.